Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Product Angle Show. And on today's episode, I'm super excited to introduce two founders of Taggg. Hey, Aaron and Trevor.
Hey.
Hey. So Aaron helps SaaS companies drive more leads, convert more users, and accelerate growth. His proven done-for-you systems and frameworks have increased conversions, automatic sales, and reduced churn for companies like Reply.io and IBM. And Trevor is a serial entrepreneur and investor. He is the founder of Taggg and also Interact, a B2B SaaS growth agency, and is the head of growth at Inner Trends, a SaaS product analytics software. Welcome again, Trevor and Aaron.
Good to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. So before we get started, I ask all my guests, what's something that we cannot Google about you? So same question to both of you as well.
Trevor, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'll get started. So 3 years ago, we sold our house, me and my wife, in Houston, and we've been living in an Airstream ever since. So working, living, etc., which has been fun traveling around the nation. Additionally, 4 months ago, we had a baby boy. So
congratulations.
Knox has joined us in the Airstream. And yeah, fun facts.
That's awesome. It must be awesome just being able to travel and just be in your Airstream and do what you want, where you want.
Yeah, it's exciting. We enjoy it.
That's good. Well, congratulations to both of you.
Thank you.
Sweet. So I used to be a professional magician and used to do bar mitzvahs and weddings. I did more close-up magic. And I also have a podcast that I recorded 3 episodes of with a friend of mine many years ago. So you can't find any of this stuff online.
That's awesome.
If you do, congratulations, you are one of the select few.
Can you show us how you make yourself disappear?
Yes, I'll do that at the end of the show. If you stick around to the end, I'll do that.
Perfect.
That's awesome. Being a magician it's fun. I bet the kids loved it.
Yep.
Okay, so as we move into Taggg, talk to me about Taggg. How did you form the founding team?
Well, the founding team was formed through relationships in each of our individual businesses. There's one other founder, Nichole Elizabeth DeMeré, and not feeling too well today, but all 3 of us play a big part in Taggg. And we've all worked together for a very long time. So as this idea came about, I kind of reached out to both of them, and we've ever since kind of just started working through solving this problem together of group meeting scheduling.
Excellent. Nichole, if you're listening to this at some point, feel better. Yeah. So what is Taggg? Tell us what Taggg is.
Yeah, at its core, it's solving scheduling group meetings. So most of the products out there today really have the solution for one-to-one meetings solved perfectly. Additionally, we do that, but I think there's a big gap here, especially in the fact that many businesses are moving remote, and a lot of meetings are happening, such as this one today, with 3 or more people. Taggg is focused on making it easy to schedule group meetings with a number of people and without too much back and forth.
Got it. So walk me through a dynamic or a use case of going to book a meeting. So let's say I want to book a meeting with you and Aaron. How does it work just from a high level perspective? Do I get access to your calendars? Do you send me a link? Just walk me through the dynamics of how it works.
Yeah, sure. So at its core, we do something called calendar overlays. So if you and Aaron have separate, let's say you're using Microsoft and Aaron is using Google, we can connect those two, and you can actually see your availability cross-checked against what Aaron is looking to, let's say, book with you on. And the more people that are doing that, the more it becomes, an open area where everyone can see exactly where availability is. Now, if you want to get into like nuances of how it works, there's really two options. One is kind of a traditional polling, but there's a core feature in Taggg in which you start connecting with people. So like we may need another meeting after this, right? And so if we are connected, we can actually set up our availability, cross-check each of our calendars, and I could essentially book directly with both of you without actually doing any sort of back and forth. So it eliminates a lot of that. And the more you use Taggg and the more you connect with your network, it actually reduces effort over time even more.
Interesting. Looking forward to releasing it. By the way, I'm number 28 on your list of wait list.
Awesome.
Sweet.
So what roles, what's your roles in Taggg? What do each of you do?
Yeah.
Sure.
So Trevor, and I'll let you talk about this, Trevor. But Trevor, you're more of the product person at this point, building a foundation for the product. My role is I'm not a real product person. Developing is not like my strong suit, but I am helping with the promotion of the product and the marketing and positioning, developing the focusing on three main parts: client acquisition, conversion, and then retention. So we're a little bit early for that right now. So I haven't really been doing a lot of that because the product is still in dev. But mostly our jobs right now are just going through the product and making sure that it's working well and that we're fixing bugs and stuff like that. So kind of our roles are changing and kind of evolving, but eventually they'll kind of settle in to a few different specific like roles.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I would say I'm more on the technical side right now, but all three of us bring in unique aspects of our individual businesses in which we've helped grow different SaaS businesses over the years. So we often bounce everything off of each other. But I would say as of right now, I've worked with some different developers on our team that I really trust that have kind of been taking over the product management role. Aaron mentioned his, and Nichole, I would say, let's say Aaron is more of the product marketer and Nichole right now is more of the traditional marketer, bringing people in, initial private beta users, etc.
Got it. So how do you communicate as a team? Because you're all geographically distributed. And talk to me about some of the communications, what's worked for you, what hasn't. How do you manage communication between the founders and the developers?
Yeah, sure. Right now, there's really three things: Slack, Zoom, Notion. Slack for chat, Zoom for video, Notion, we have a playbook in which we handle everything we're working on, tasks, etc. Really, Notion is kind of our core tool for organizing everything we're doing, to be honest.
Fair enough. How do you solve trade-offs and disagreements between the team? Have you had any disagreements so far?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Dude, we are so lucky. I think because we've worked together for so long, we know our personalities well enough that we knew we would just work together really well. Trevor is amazing at just taking feedback and then kind of fostering a kind of like a community or a culture of just openness. And so like all of us together are like that. And so we very rarely have disagreements, and we really trust each other a lot too. So I mean, I don't get involved in the development side a whole lot. Trevor, we trust each other to do what we're good at, and I think the element of trust and openness results in this culture of us being able to really discuss and talk about anything. And we're so on the same page with a lot of stuff that it's very rare that we have a very strong disagreement. Trevor, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it helps with the three of us having a background in really client management. So we understand how to solve problems, and each of us do, and we kind of bring that to the table together too.
Fair enough. Now, if you were to think of a struggle as founders, what would you say one of your biggest struggles would be in building Taggg?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of the same struggle any founder has in structuring, let's say, fairness. Like, we're all doing a lot of different work, and making sure that we fairly get credited for it and making each other happy is kind of a struggle. But we've found ways around that, and I'm happy to go into it if you're interested.
No, just curious, because you all have a really good setup. You've known each other before you started. You've worked with each other, and that does play into a level of trust and distribution of work and expectations. So just curious to see where the struggles may be during the earlier phases.
I think it's mainly on that. Like, we're all busy with other core activities, and it's a positive and a negative. The positive, we each are financially stable within other businesses, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to rely on Taggg to do that. But at the same time, juggling the balance of fairness in the work that we do is really the main area, I would say, that can be difficult.
Fair enough. And how much would you say writing well plays an important part in your ability to communicate with each other?
Do you want to answer that, Aaron?
Yeah, we have a meeting every week. We meet twice a week.
Okay.
So like, we're very rarely like having to write out huge long emails, and because that's time consuming, man. It's so much easier to just meet and have. We use the L10 meeting process from Traction, and so when we have stuff we want to discuss, we put it in an IDS, and then when we show up to the meeting, we just go through the process, and everything's taken care of. We know exactly what we need to do. If ever there's a question, we log into the meeting schedule, and it's always up to date. And so as far as efficiency is concerned, like, we're really, really efficient. Very rarely do we ever communicate through email. And if it's Slack, it's usually just to ask either quick questions or whatever. Because we know anything that we have for the meeting for the executive team will be taken care of at least once a week. And because we're in the dev stage right now, there's really not a lot of communication. I imagine it'll probably get more and more not complicated, but we'll probably have more and more communication as we start getting customers and growing and scaling and stuff like that. But for now, we have a really good, efficient system in place.
That's good to hear. So I want to shift gears into the ideation stage. Who came up with the idea for Taggg, and how did you come up with the idea behind Taggg?
Yeah, sure. So I originally came up with it, and it's just out of necessity. Ultimately, working in an agency, we always have a scenario very similar to, let's say, this, right? So Aaron has his own company, I have my own, you have your own. We all are using different calendars. We all aren't necessarily connected, and if we want to find a time to meet, it's actually very difficult. Unless you're connected in your Google Calendar and we're all in the same calendar, whatever. But the majority of the problems exist when it's not an internal team and there's multiple parties in an external environment. This happens all over and over again within Interact as an agency, a B2B SaaS growth agency, primarily because we have an internal team of employees. We also have contractors. We also have clients, and we have clients who then also have contractors. I mean, it goes on forever. And so the problem kept coming up over and over again. And through those problems, there was a clear answer, and that no one solved. And so that's where it was basically born from, out of a problem we experienced every week.
Fair enough. Now, what does customer discovery look like to you?
Yeah. So for us, we really lean heavy on jobs to be done. And so we've done a lot of interviews, surveys, and basically extracted unmet needs within the space, within the scheduling space. From that, like, it drives basically not just our marketing activities, but our roadmap. I mean, everything is core off of this. So customer discovery for us has been an adopted methodology of jobs to be done for SaaS, I would say.
Fair enough. Now, when you're looking at the jobs to be done and thinking of a particular solution, how much emphasis do you put on competitors? There's two schools of thoughts. Some people say, don't focus on the competitors, work on making the end user or the customer happy in the job that you're trying to, in the problem that you're trying to solve. And then there are others that you should be aware of the competitors, but not necessarily be too focused on the competitors. How have you, what approach have you taken?
For us, yeah, sure. So for us, we look at competition as the competitor to a job, not in a traditional sense where, hey, we're competing with like, let's say just Calendly or Doodle or some of those guys. We look at, it could be pencil and paper, it could be a G sheet. There's a lot of different things within competition, and you really want to look at the job that's being performed and what's the competitor or solution that they're using right now today. So we look at competition a little bit differently than maybe a traditional thought would be. But I would say it's important. It's very important to understand. But you don't want it to drive your decisions either.
Yeah, and I'd also add, the reason we came up with Taggg is because we looked at the competitive landscape and no one else is solving this problem. So I mean, that's the whole reason. I work with a lot of SaaS products who just don't do that kind of research and just want to, because there's a lot of money in a specific market, they want to create a tool in that market, and there's really no differentiating. There's no unique selling proposition. But when we looked at what was available, we saw that there was a gap in the market, and that's kind of that kind of determined the focus of the product, the main problem we wanted to solve. And then right now we're not analyzing competitors, but now that we have a direction, we know we're different from everyone else.
Fair enough. Now, as founders, what does a roadmap look like to you?
Yeah, for us, it's we basically mapped our opportunities based on our research and came up with the top 3 unmet needs in the space, and that's really driven our entire roadmap. So we're solving the first biggest problem with the biggest opportunity first. And ultimately, we work together off of that as a core central problem that we solve, and we break it down from there. But the roadmap is, at this stage, is extremely simple. We're not making it complex. We trust each of our expertise. The developers that we've worked with for a long time understand how we work as well. And so as long as we're agreeing that what we're building is solving these 3 core problems, we're all on the same page.
Can you talk us through those 3 core problems?
Yeah, sure. I have them written down right here. So the first discovery is minimizing the effort when deciding what meeting times to suggest to multiple people. Just the core product that basically came out of our research. The second is minimizing the time it takes to reschedule canceled meetings. So a lot of times people aren't thinking about rescheduling, but I think it becomes more and more important as more people are involved in meeting scheduling too. And the third is minimizing the effort in scheduling meetings from your mobile device. So a lot of times we've noticed that there is a lot, scheduling things in desktop or from email to email is super easy, but actually doing it from your mobile device, which is where a lot of things I think would occur if you could, there's a big unmet need there.
Makes sense. Now, how far out do you think roadmap should be, or how far out does your roadmap go? Do you put a frame around it, or it's based on the needs?
Right now, it's simply based on the need. So once we solve this problem and we validate it, we'll move on to the next one and prioritization. And what we realize is these are high-level problems that they can break down in a lot of different ways. So the core is understanding when that problem's solved and when we can move to the next one, but there isn't necessarily a time. There's goals.
Yeah. So sounds like you've done a lot of research around the problem of being able to schedule a meeting with 3 or more people. So having said that, getting a buy-in for the roadmap should be pretty self-explanatory to an extent, or pretty easier, because you're not having to then get buy-in and alignment from a number of different stakeholders. At the end of the day, you've got 3 founders, and if you've got the research, you've got the unmet need, should it be relatively simple to get buy-in between the 3 of you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all know the problems we're solving. We have 3 core problems, pains that we're solving, and if we constantly have to, we have a word that we use in our meetings when we're getting off on a tangent. We say tangent alert, and because oftentimes as founders, we're always thinking about new problems to solve and new ideas and what's new and exciting. But for this to keep our focus and for us to really scale this, we need to keep focused on solving 3 specific problems. We've decided on 3, and we're going to fix those problems. And then anything that falls outside of that, if it's necessary for our customers to have success with the product, we can consider it. But for now, we're solving these 3 core problems. And if they don't fit, if a feature or something fits outside of that, then right now it's not a priority.
Fair enough. That makes sense. Talk us through a little bit about how you've gone about conducting your customer research. What does that mean to you? How have you gone about doing it, collecting data and analyzing that data?
Yeah, sure. So again, it goes back to jobs to be done. So we've analyzed the traditional jobs to be done research, which is heavily focused on enterprise type businesses and finding new ways to reinvent the business or where its particular unmet needs are, which is exactly what we've done. However, we've kind of transitioned that into the SaaS space. So there's some modifications to this that we've done, but the core of this is in the interviews, in my opinion, that is really, really hard to teach. So doing effective interviewing and analysis from them is where I think that would be difficult to kind of give you a breakdown on insights, but that's a very, very important aspect. So I would recommend just looking at how to interview from jobs to be done. But once we have that research, we basically build out job characters, job stories, a job canvas, and ultimately prioritize from the story, from the customer journey of every job that needs to be done within scheduling meetings. Here are the areas that have highest priority. Here are the unmet needs, and we prioritize off of that. We have a way of plotting this to give us a clearer picture, but that's the general concept.
Fair enough. At what was there a point in your research where you all thought to yourselves, yes, we've found something that people need?
Yes, when to me it's when the assumptions that this is a problem gets validated in the research, which it was the number one problem, right? Like the other 2 issues I mentioned within rescheduling meetings and mobile are great unmet needs that are really good insights. But if the number one was validated with our research, which we didn't want to build something on assumptions.
No, I agree with you. Scheduling a meeting one-on-one is relatively simpler or easier, but when you start scheduling meetings with groups, 3 or more people, and they each will have their own calendars, some could be internal, some could be external, I definitely agree with you that there is a big unmet need to make that scheduling process easier, simpler, and less time consuming, because right now you have to throw out 3 dates and somebody can either have availability during that time, or they may then push out 2 additional dates, or whatever the case may be. So it's very back and forth, time consuming.
It was ironic and embarrassing scheduling this with you, actually, since we don't have the product finalized.
Yes, I think I remember putting out 3 dates, right? And you picked one of the dates. So I appreciate that. So how is Taggg being developed right now? Do you have a bunch of in-house developers, contractors, or talk me through that development process?
Yeah, sure. No, so we've worked with a developer for a long time within Interact, and he's our core developer right now. We just want to get functionality out the door first, and then we'll probably scale up from there. But we have a single developer. Sometimes his brother helps with him, but I mean, we're a very small team. This is bootstrapped, and it's a single developer, really.
Fair enough. Now, talk us through what alpha, beta, and MVP, those terms, what do they mean to you? How are you viewing those terms as you build Taggg?
Yeah, sure. So MVP is really to me is kind of like the first stage, and you can do this through like a clickable prototype and get validation from different people. Alpha for me is like us as a team. Really, it's like the closest. We're now testing the product. We agree that functionality is there or isn't there, or what we need to build to get to what we would say private beta. Private beta is our closest network that we start inviting to the product. Public beta, we start inviting people on the wait list, such as yourself. And then we basically move into launch at that point, which is fully public.
Fair enough. What, as you're building Taggg, who have you spoken to? What kind of companies or individuals have you shown your product to, recently, or as you build it?
Only our closest people have we shown the product to. We've only worked on the discovery of the problems that we're solving, to be honest with you. So no one's really seen the product, to be honest, if that answers the question.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So I was trying to gauge where you are in the development process. So right now, from what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, you've validated the problem, you've shown internal teams and maybe friends or family, what you're working on, but it's not been released, or it's not out there in the public for people to comment or say this is great or this could be improved as of yet.
Correct. Our goal is starting next year for that. We have functionality within the product that solves problems. It's not very elegant yet. And that's where we're kind of waiting for, is smoothing out some of the rough edges before we get anybody in there.
That's perfect. So then I'd like to shift gears into, the go-to-market strategy, because there's this big unmet need, I think. And I agree with what you guys have been saying, but how have you thought about going to market? For me, I saw it on Twitter, and as soon as I saw group meetings, I knew that that's something that is very difficult to do, and that's when I signed up on your wait list. But talk us through the thought process of how you are planning to approach or are doing the go-to-market strategy.
Sure, I'll start it off, and maybe you can add to this, Aaron.
Sure.
Ultimately, our entire goal here is to solve the problem first. We don't want to get anything else involved until that is validated. So basically, go-to-market for us is solve the problem, validate it before we get pricing involved, have people using it. There's a core virality aspect to this product in which when a meeting is sent to somebody, you have the ability to either choose what's available outright from a calendar or connect your calendar to see the calendar overlay so you can see the gap and exactly where to find. So really the go-to-market within that is, let's see how this virality picks up if people are signing up for free to connect their calendars, to find availability, to schedule better meetings. And then once we understand and track how people are using the customer engagement metrics, we'll then derive, let's say, pricing around that. But all we really want to do is solve the problem first.
Fair enough. what are some of the lessons you've learned as you've been building Taggg that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Anything for you, Aaron, off the top of your head?
Yeah. It takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take.
Yeah.
We're lucky. I think we're extremely lucky because Trevor, Nichole, and I have all worked with combined, I would say, thousands of SaaS companies in consulting and helping them grow. We avoided so many pitfalls by just knowing what to do and how to do it. Like, this is probably could possibly be like the easiest launch of a product in the top 1% easiest launches, because we've done it so many times for our clients. So there hasn't really been any like, oh no, we totally didn't expect this, or this is a huge, no one told us this was going to happen. Like, we kind of knew all this stuff was going to happen. We planned for it. We're on track. And like, as far as like the biggest challenges so far, has just been the frustration of not being able to get the product done as quickly as we want, because we keep finding better ways to solve the problem in the app. And I'm like chomping at the bit, right, to use this app because I need it desperately in my business. So, and we're just really excited to launch it. And then once we do that, the problem set will change. But for now, it's just getting, like Trevor said, getting the product done and yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all. I agree with that. I would say we each have individual problems we're solving, right, on a week-to-week basis. So the concentration is a little bit different, but in that regard, it's the same as growing any product and within your role. I think the biggest thing for us is coming together on our weekly L10s and making sure we're all on the same page.
Definitely. Now, what about in terms of your careers? Because both of you own businesses, both of you are successful founders. What are some of the lessons that you've learned as founders over the years that you can share?
Oh man, how much time? How much more time do we have? I mean, I would say for me, and what we did right from the get-go for Taggg, the biggest mistake that I see companies making is not having a really clear understanding of who they're solving the problem for.
Yeah.
They may know the problem that they're solving, but they don't know who they're solving it for, and they don't know which industry or use case it's solving a big problem for. We want to solve, ideally, we want to solve a very big problem, right? Because group meetings, if you're a freelancer and scheduling a group meeting with a client or two and an outsourcer, that's a small problem. A big problem is if you're a consultant and you need to meet with 5 different VCs or whatever, and you want to make the experience really, really good, you're willing to pay a lot more for that than you are for solving a smaller problem. So we understand that, and going into this product, we know that this problem is a big problem in specific markets, and so we're keeping that in mind instead of just going out doing SEO and content, hoping people sign up, and then figuring out from there. I see a lot of companies make the mistake of not having a clear CAC. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people don't know their CAC. And if you don't know your CAC, how are you going to be able to grow and scale? Like, it's just impossible, right? It's not impossible, but it's not scalable. It's not predictable. Yeah. So we want to get to the point where we know who our customer is, we know our CAC, and then we can scale as quickly or as slowly as we want, depending on where we're at in the product cycle.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think that's a good, I'll answer the other question, or the question in which you asked, but you brought up a good point too, Aaron, around our go-to-market, right? Which was a big thing for us, because solving group scheduling goes across industries everywhere, right? And so we really narrowed in on where we can, and this is something that's kind of maybe tough for different people, but we knew our network, all 3 of us, and we wanted to stay close within our network to scale first and prove value before extending into any other industries. And then we'll start prioritizing industries and other areas along the way. But that's something to note. Regarding what I've learned from working with many SaaS companies, from the top down, my biggest problem that I see over and over again is team alignment. And everybody's siloed in what they're doing, and not a clear process in which to get everybody on the same page. So I would say solve that problem first, and there's many ways to do it. We basically solve it through L10 meetings and a framework that I call the SaaS actionable metrics, in which we take the 5 SaaS growth pillars: acquisition, activation, revenue, retention, and referral. And we outline and have a framework where we outline the metrics that matter most within those areas, the teams that are responsible for growing them, down to the metric that an individual owns if it's not performing properly, to the tools that you use to solve those problems, to the strategies that you use to grow the problems, and where each of these are even tracked. So by siloing this into 5 pillars and everything across the board, you have a clear understanding of what are the things you're trying to grow as a team to solve the overarching problem, and then communicating that back and cross-checking you guys' efforts as a team through an L10 meeting. That's how we solve it. But that, to me, is the biggest problem I see over and over again, is teams working siloed.
Fair enough. I agree with you. Alignment and communication is so important.
Totally.
If you have that alignment, communication, and the shared values, it makes life so much easier because you're all on the same page. You can pump out these experiments and get feedback and keep iterating much, much faster.
Totally. When a team's rowing in the boat in the same direction, it goes a heck of a lot faster too.
Absolutely. What are some of your plans for the future? Have you thought that far ahead, or are you right now just focusing on getting the product into people's hands? Have you thought about what the future looks like for Taggg?
Well, I would say yes and no. Right now, our focus is 100% on solving the problem and getting to market. But I think as how we each run our business also influences the longer term of Taggg. For us, we wanted to keep it a small team. There's no reason to grow some huge thing where this product is built around how we live our lifestyles. Me being more or less a nomad, I'm not interested in growing a huge team, and I want teams to be remote. Every team that I work in is fully remote. So solving a problem that can be solved with a small team has always been something in the back of each of our heads too. So, we'll see where the product takes us. The first is solve the problem, but ultimately we want to keep optimized.
Fair enough. Thank you. Now we have 2 questions here from Raj. Big problems. So the first question here, big problem in specific markets. How does total addressable market fit this assessment? Yeah,
so we use a tool called the business model canvas from Strategizer to basically map this out. So we took the I think 3 to 5, I can't remember exactly, I'd have to look at it now. 3 to 5 focus areas, ideal customers we want to go after first, and then broke down that market, looked at our pricing tiers in which we think are high, medium, and low that we can attribute to, and we map out what features match which type of ideal customer, what type of pricing matches that. So we kind of have a triangular matching, but we relatively just use the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas, to understand TAM and what our potential is. And everything's different, but within scheduling meetings, like I said, we knew we could expand that drastically as well, but we wanted to start small.
Fair enough. And I think there's a follow-up, or do you want to solve a big problem for a big TAM?
For us, we want to solve a big problem for a big TAM because it's easy when, right? Sure. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it was awesome chatting with you both. Before we end the stream, is there anything you'd like to say before we end?
other than thanks for having us, make sure you check us out and sign up. We'd be happy to get you access as soon as possible. We'd love to solve the problem with you and learn from you guys too, how we can do it better.
Excellent. So I've got the URL. It's taggg.com on the screen. Aaron, Trevor, thank you so much. It's been awesome chatting to you, and I'm looking forward to getting access to it.
Our pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.